America 2, video number 9. Hello, and welcome back to the America 2 video series where we dissect the most serious problems facing America. My name is John Shore, and I will again be your host for this video, the next to last in the series, where the problem for today will be government failure, actually refusal, to implement current technologies for purposes of improving the political and economic well-being of all American citizens. Technology has provided the basis for significant change in many areas of our society. Technology has been made considerable use of in terms of improving our ability to produce more of everything with the involvement of less per capita human labor. Technology has also been used extensively to improve our physical health and longevity, advance war-related goals, and for purposes of restoring health when it's lost through disease. Paradoxically, the ability of technology to positively impact these areas of our lives has resulted in bringing about some very negative and unwelcome changes in the economic well-being of an ever-growing number of American citizens. A combination of offshoring or automating what used to be manual tasks, when confronted with a rapidly expanding population, has caught not only the American middle-class working citizens, but worker citizens worldwide in between two diametrically opposed forces that threaten to crush them all. In part, this may be happening because those in leadership positions at all levels, in both the public and private sectors, have allowed themselves to become trapped by conventional thinking. Conventional thinking holds that technological advances are limited to working to advance productivity, improving health and longevity, providing new and improved means of effecting warfare. In all past generations, this has been the case, so it's perhaps been assumed that such will always be the case. But technology itself has been responsible for now making it possible to overturn this conventional wisdom. Prior generations' advances in technology were admittedly limited to impacting these areas, but no prior generation ever had the advantage of using something as powerful as a microchip for whatever purpose they wished. Today, computers are primarily used for the traditional purposes mentioned earlier. We have better weapons, better ways of delivering both the weapons and troops to wherever they might be needed. Our understanding of the physical universe is greater than ever before and growing every day. Advances in medicine occur almost on a daily basis. Accounting and forecasting have become routine by way of using computers to handle ever greater amounts of information. And the internet has effectively made it possible for all computers, all sizes, all makes, to be joined in a manner that provides for sharing business and other information on a scale never before possible. Manufacturing productivity has never been greater. All of which, excluding nefarious purposes brought about by artificial intelligence, are worthwhile applications for technology. To date, there have been no significant attempts to employ technology for purposes of bettering the political and/or economic well-being of citizens here in the U.S. who have otherwise been adversely affected by offshoring or of technological advances seen their jobs reduced to an underemployed level or seen their jobs eliminated through mergers or otherwise. While all of these negative advances have been happening at the same time, our elected leaders have perhaps been lulled into a false sense of security, thinking that they could employ technology to help themselves and their parties while avoiding actually getting involved in helping solve the political and economic problems that they themselves created and that are destroying the lives of so many of their constituents. Majority of politicians are intelligent, biased, unable to accurately define or solve problems, and interested always in increasing their circle of influence in the government. They're also mostly articulate, smooth talkers, good salesmen and good saleswomen. Most have a good sense of humor and often make depreciating remarks about themselves and others. Most of them are also lazy, easily swayed by campaign money sources, and able to rationalize screwing over their constituents when the occasion calls for it. When some government program they were involved in bringing to life goes off the rails and ends up hurting a few million citizens, they often remind us, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. But the eggs that get broken always seem to be in their constituents' baskets, never in their own baskets. Technology has the potential to greatly reduce the number of times when these programs go off the rails and are then kept in place as a face-saving measure for the politicians that screwed up and harmed the country. Politics. Using automation and technology to improve politics and tabulating of political activities. Political leaders at every level have been quick to seize on the use of the Internet's World Wide Web as a means of enhancing communications with their constituents, that is to say, junk mail, which may or may not be a step in the positive direction. And of course, what's presently available on the internet from a political standpoint is spin on ideas that the politicians want to sell down the food chain to their constituents in an attempt to convince them that they're working on their best behalf. And a logical and beneficial extension of this level of interconnection would be for elected officials to provide a way for constituents to not only express their thoughts online, but to have those thoughts and wishes compiled and quantified in a manner that allowed all of the elected officials and constituents see what others like them were saying to the elected official, without having the elected officials' spin doctors first pre-interpret the messages. And still another logical extension of this technology would be for the government to implement a system available through the internet to provide for interested citizens to view how their elected officials voted on every issue coming before Congress, every step along the way. Voice votes have been made obsolete by technology. There remains no good reason why all votes taken in Congress could not be recorded both more quickly and accurately electronically, even allowing congresspersons the capability to dial in remotely and vote. This would eliminate congresspersons from dodging important issues by being able to make up excuses for not voting on sensitive bills before their body, and would provide an additional benefit in that all citizens could see immediately just how their elected officials voted on every matter affecting their lives at every step along the way. And technology could easily and accurately be used to track the comings and goings of single interest groups calling on elected officials by keeping track of which lobbyists representing which single interest called on which elected officials and how much money each later contributed to action committees that ultimately ends up in campaign coffers of the elected officials, and so on. But it doesn't stop there. The existing electronic network could be used today to allow all citizens to vote directly on all important matters affecting their economic well-being. Of course, the Constitution might first have to be amended to allow citizens to participate directly in lawmaking at the federal level. Currently, the Constitution reserves almost all decision-making related to enactment of enactment of legislation to the Congress and President only. But time has now changed many of the conditions, especially geographic, education-wise, communication-wise, that served as part of the basis for the Founding Fathers' decision to frame the Constitution entirely along the lines of a republic. There are now more areas that can profit from direct citizen input. And technology has made that not just possible, but simple. And congressional actions, beyond getting elected, are currently done by Congress. All the Congress actions beyond getting elected are currently done in the Congress by way of a democratic process, where the will of the majority, often just a plurality of Congress, prevails. Technology has made it easily possible for Congress sharing all citizens directly in bringing all citizens directly into the decision-making process when making decisions that affect the outcome of every citizen's lives. And still another area technology could be used to benefit both the political and economic well-being of citizens would be to use mathematical modeling to challenge the conventional wisdom regarding how many hours should constitute a full work week. Assuming such a week's activity would produce enough income, if worked for now, by two people to provide for meeting all the basic needs of an average-sized family and to publish the results. This information could then be used by the public at large to guide the establishment of policies relating to things like what the minimum wage should be here in America. Eliminating some middlemen. Economics. Technology provides the ability in many areas to eliminate I'm having a hard time talking today. Middlemen whose being in the economic model proves to be a detriment to the economic well-being of the country as a whole. The split screen is displaying a spreadsheet that serves to illustrate the cost to the citizens and our country of keeping in place a 200-plus-year-old production and sales model that has now been made obsolete by technology, but which the government and more than half of the commercial interests want to keep in place because it profits them at the expense of all of the citizens and the country overall. Given that past generations of elected officials have been responsible through the laws that they've passed for bringing us to the point where something in the neighborhood of 50+% of all income earned by middle-class working citizens is now taken by some government body using technology to bring about a reversing or amending of some of the past acts responsible for taking away our income before we even see it, could perhaps be one of the most significant ways technology could positively impact our economic well-being. The spreadsheet shows that citizens could expect to save in the neighborhood of 60% on all non-perishable items they purchase using a new manufacturer or fabricator direct sales model that eliminated at least 2 and possibly 3 of the middlemen levels that citizens are now routinely paying for. 60% savings is nothing to sneeze at, and if that applied to even half of each person's purchases, would save an average citizen 15% of his or her total expenditures each day, month, and year. Housing payments would generally not be affected since they're mostly covered by a mortgage or two, and house payments or rents typically account for about 25 to 35% of each person's total expenses, the government's figures. Same thing for auto payments, which account for 8 to 10% of each person's monthly expenses. Auto purchases could avoid the distributors and retailers' markups. They still have to have delivery charges offsetting part of these markups and savings. But that still leaves 67% of total income to cover the remaining potential expenses, both durable and non-durable expenses each month. The government estimates that food costs are about 14% of our total monthly expenses. That's a big bite. And fuel, energy costs are still, according to the government, around 7% of total earnings. These are probably both understated by the government. Now, we're down to 46% of earnings. Things like expenditures on recreation, internet, telephone services, utilities, could eat another 10 to 15% pretty easily, leaving us with about 30% put in the bank and save, or buy things we want. And if we save 60% on just this 30%, we'd still end up saving a little over 70% a year of our overall expenses. 10 to 17% reduction in overall outlays for the year, every year, could make a difference right from the outset. And over a few months or years, period of time, maybe even be enough to buy a new car for cash, or maybe pay additional cooling for someone in the family, or help with prescription drug costs. And assuming you were fortunate enough to earn $70,000 a year, the new minimum wage, for 50 years, totaling $3.5 million for you, and you saved $7,000 a year, excluding interest compounding, you'd still have more than $350,000 extra dollars in the bank when you retired. And if Social Security or some equivalent retirement program is still alive, have more than enough to live out your retirement years in solid comfort. But, looking at it from the government's perspective, changing the 200-plus-year-old production sales model to one that eliminated some middlemen who do nothing to contribute value to what is being purchased by the end user could end up costing the government a substantial amount of taxes they now receive from middlemen in the current production sales model. And so once again, we've come full circle and are back at the need to grow the productive sector of the economy more than we grow the population, so that the government can bring in taxes enough to pay all its bills, with a bit left over every year, and still not drag everyone in the country down in the process. And none of this is meant to suggest that we suddenly eliminate all the Walmarts and Costcos of the world and try buying everything we need through the mail. But it is to suggest that use of technology to eliminate a significant percentage of middlemen who do nothing to increase the value of products being purchased at the end consumer level could serve to cause the middle class, even every middle class, working citizen's income to stretch significantly further than it does today. And it is also to suggest that we as American middle class working citizens have it within our power by voting with our pocketbooks through initiation of laws that require producers to disclose the number of middlemen involved in getting their products to end consumers, and to act in a way that encourages producers to work actively at ways to get their products to us at prices that are significantly less than they now expect us to pay for them. At this point in time, however, technology is only being used to further the interests of businesses, middlemen, and government users of citizens' money. And these bodies have a vested interest in not using technology to modify the present market and government models in a way that improves the political and economic well-being of American working citizens. The government, too, is not particularly interested in providing citizens a way of tabulating the activities of elected officials and the lobbyists and oligarchs that peddle influence to them, and or which improve citizens' ability to provide unfiltered input into the decision-making process and to petition Congress on matters of redress. And that is definitely a problem. And that about does it for this video. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for caring about our country and wanting it, America and us, to be all that we can be together. Be well.